Let's start with a simple question. How did you learn your first language? Think about it. Did your parents hand you a dictionary when you were 2 years old? Did they make you memorize 50 words every weekend? Of course not. You learned naturally. You heard words. You saw situations. You connected meaning with experience. And slowly, without realizing it, your vocabulary grew. Now, here's the strange thing. When we start learning English, many of us completely forget how language learning actually works. Instead of learning naturally, we try to force information into our brains. We create long vocabulary lists. We memorize definitions. We study isolated words. And then we're surprised when we forget them. Imagine meeting 100 people at a party. You hear their names once, then you leave. How many names would you remember a week later? Probably very few. Why? Because there was no connection, no story, no emotion, no repetition. Words work the same way. A word without context is just noise. A word inside a story becomes memorable. Why your brain forgets vocabulary. Let's talk about your brain for a moment. Your brain is incredibly intelligent. In fact, it's so intelligent that it constantly decides what information is important and what information isn't. When you memorize a random word like abandon, your brain thinks, interesting, but why should I keep this? And because it doesn't see a meaningful reason, it lets the information fade away. Now imagine hearing this sentence. The family had to abandon their house because of the flood. Suddenly, everything changes. You can see the image. You can feel the emotion. You understand the situation. The word now has meaning, and meaning creates memory. This is why stories are powerful. This is why movies are powerful. This is why conversations are powerful. They give words a home, and words that have a home stay longer in your mind. This single idea can dramatically improve your vocabulary. Learn phrases, not individual words. For example, don't learn decision, learn make a decision. Don't learn opportunity, learn a great opportunity. Don't learn experience, learn a life-changing experience. Why? Because language is not built from single words. Language is built from chunks. Native speakers don't create every sentence from scratch. Their brains store thousands of ready-made phrases, and that's exactly what you should do. Instead of memorizing 1,000 words, memorize 1,000 useful phrases, because phrases immediately show you how words are actually used, and that's where fluency begins. Reading, the vocabulary goldmine. If I had to choose only one activity for learning vocabulary, it would be reading. Not because reading is magical, but because reading exposes you to words in context. Imagine reading a story. You encounter the word curious. You don't know it, but you continue reading. A few pages later, you see it again, then again, then again. Suddenly, you understand the word without needing a dictionary. This is how vocabulary naturally grows, through repeated exposure, not forced memorization. And here's the beautiful part. Every book becomes a vocabulary teacher. Every article becomes a lesson. Every story becomes an opportunity to learn. That's why successful learners read regularly, not because they enjoy studying, but because reading quietly expands vocabulary every single day. The power of listening. Now let's talk about listening, because listening is one of the most underrated vocabulary tools. Think about how many times you've heard certain words in your life. Hello, thank you, good morning. You don't need to study these words anymore. Why? Because you've heard them thousands of times. Repetition created familiarity, and familiarity created memory. The same thing happens when you listen to English podcasts, watch YouTube videos, listen to audiobooks, or watch movies. Words appear again and again. Your brain starts recognizing patterns, and eventually words become automatic. That's why I always recommend daily listening, even if you understand only 60%. Even if it feels difficult, Your brain is still learning, and every minute of listening adds another brick to your vocabulary foundation. The 5 encounter rule. Here's a simple rule that can change everything. Most people expect to remember a word after seeing it once. That's unrealistic. Research and experience suggest that words often need multiple encounters before they become part of your active vocabulary. Sometimes 5 times, sometimes 10, sometimes 20. So stop getting frustrated when you forget a word. Forgetting is part of learning. Instead of asking, "Why did I forget this word?" ask, "How can I meet this word again?" Because every encounter strengthens the memory. Every encounter makes the word more familiar, and familiarity eventually becomes fluency. How to learn 1,000 English words naturally. Now, let's put everything together. If your goal is learning 1,000 English words naturally, here's what I would do. First, listen to English every day. Podcasts, videos, interviews, anything interesting. Second, read regularly. Articles, books, stories, blog posts. Fourth, collect phrases instead of individual words. Fifth, review words in context, not through definitions alone. And sixth, use new vocabulary immediately. Speak it, write it, think with it, because usage transforms knowledge into skill. Do this consistently for a year, and you'll be amazed by the results. Not because you're memorizing harder, but because you're learning smarter. The future version of you. Imagine yourself 6 months from now. You're watching an English video, and suddenly you realize something. You understand words that once confused you. You recognize expressions you've heard before. You don't need to stop and translate every sentence. Everything feels smoother, more natural, more familiar. That moment won't happen because you memorized a giant vocabulary book. It will happen because you spent months surrounding yourself with English, reading, listening, speaking, learning naturally, one day at a time. And that's the real secret. Vocabulary growth isn't a single event. It's a process that happens quietly, gradually, almost invisibly, until one day you look back and realize how far you've come. Through stories, through conversations, through podcasts, through books, through life. Because words learned naturally are words remembered naturally. So stop fighting your brain. Work with it. Read more, listen more, speak more, and trust the process. Because every sentence you read, every podcast you hear, and every conversation you have is helping build the vocabulary of your future fluent self. Thank you for listening. And remember, don't focus on memorizing English. Focus on living with English. The vocabulary will follow. The 30-Day Vocabulary Challenge. Now I want to challenge you. Not for a year, not for 6 months, just for the next 30 days. Because sometimes people hear advice and think, that sounds great, but where do I start? You start small. You start today. And for the next 30 days, I want you to follow a simple challenge. A challenge designed not to overwhelm you, but to transform the way you learn English vocabulary. Day 1 to Day 10. Become a vocabulary hunter. For the first 10 days, your mission is simple. Notice words. That's it. Don't try to memorize hundreds of words. Don't pressure yourself. Instead, become curious. Every day, while watching videos, reading articles, listening to podcasts, or scrolling through English content, collect 5 interesting words or phrases. Not 50, 5. Write down the entire sentence where you found them. Remember, context is king. The sentence matters more than the word itself. At the end of 10 days, you'll already have 50 useful words and phrases connected to real situations, not random dictionary entries. Real language. Language people actually use. Day 11 to Day 20. Bring words to life. Now we're moving to the next stage, usage. Every day, choose 3 words or phrases from your collection. Create your own sentences. Speak them out loud. Use them while talking to yourself. Write a short paragraph. Describe your day. Tell a story. Make the words part of your life.
because vocabulary grows when words move from your notebook into your mind, and they move into your mind when you start using them. This is where many learners stop. Don't, because this stage is where transformation begins. Day 21 to day 30. Live in English. For the final 10 days, increase your exposure. Watch more English content. Read more English content. Listen more. Notice how familiar words begin appearing everywhere. Words that once felt new suddenly feel normal. Expressions you struggled to understand become obvious. And something incredible starts happening. You stop learning vocabulary consciously. You start acquiring it naturally, just like native speakers do. At the end of 30 days, don't ask yourself, how many words did I memorize? Ask yourself, how much easier does English feel now? Because that's the real measure of progress, not the size of your vocabulary list, but the strength of your relationship with the language. Now let me tell you about 3 learners, 3 ordinary people, people who started exactly where many of you are today. Story number 1, the student who hated vocabulary lists. There was a student who spent years trying to memorize English vocabulary. Every week he would create huge lists. Every week he would forget most of them. The cycle repeated again and again. Eventually he became frustrated. He stopped focusing on vocabulary books. Instead, he started reading stories he genuinely enjoyed. At first, progress felt slow, but he kept reading. A few months later, he noticed something surprising. Words he had never actively studied were appearing in his speech.
He wasn't memorizing anymore. He was absorbing. Years later, he became fluent, not because he studied harder, because he studied smarter. A man worked long shifts in a factory. He had very little free time. He couldn't afford expensive courses. He couldn't attend language schools. Most people would say his chances were limited. But he had a smartphone. Every day during breaks, he listened to English podcasts. While commuting, he listened to English podcasts. Before sleeping, he listened to English podcasts. 30 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 10 minutes somewhere else. The minutes accumulated. The hours accumulated, the months accumulated, and eventually his vocabulary exploded. Not overnight, not through miracles, through consistency. Today, he communicates confidently with international clients, the same person who once believed he didn't have enough time. The truth about vocabulary growth. Notice something about all these stories. None of these people learned English through shortcuts. None of them discovered a secret trick. None of them became fluent in 30 days. What they did discover was something more valuable. Consistency beats intensity every single time. The learners who succeed are rarely the ones who study the hardest for a week. They're the ones who keep showing up for months and years. They're the ones who trust the process, even when results aren't obvious, even when progress feels slow, even when motivation disappears. And so, as we come to the end of today's episode, I want to leave you with one final thought. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is beginning their English journey. Someone is learning their very first word. Someone is struggling through their first conversation. Someone is making mistakes. Someone is feeling exactly the same fears you once felt. And one day, they might become fluent. Not because they were extraordinary, but because they refused to stop. And the same is true for you. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need a perfect accent. You don't need a perfect study plan. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to continue. One day at a time, one phrase at a time, one conversation at a time. Because language learning is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming better than you were yesterday. And if you can do that consistently, there is no limit to how far you'll go. So when this episode ends, don't think about the 1,000 words you haven't learned yet. Think about the next word, the next phase, the next step. Because that's how every fluent speaker got there, one word at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Keep reading, keep listening, keep speaking, keep growing, and most importantly, keep believing that the fluent version of you already exists. Your job is simply to meet them. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep moving forward. I'll see you in the next episode.